Greetings, everybody, and welcome. Thank you for joining me again for another night of Facebook Live. Also, I want to give thanks for those of you that go to our YouTube channel and or our SoundCloud channel to catch the replay. It is indeed a blessing to be here with you once again for another audience pick topic, and that is what I'm doing tonight is answering the question, what are some things that bother me? So that is one of the questions that has been posed. So I accepted the request and decided that I'd go ahead tonight and address the question, what are some things that bother me? Well, believe it or not, there's a lot of things that bother me and a lot of things that don't. So you may be surprised, but I guess it gives us an opportunity, uh, give you an opportunity to get to know me a little better. But as we're getting started tonight, don't forget to like and share this video. All right, so one of the things that bother me is ignorance. I think that I had discussed that before in one of our earlier videos. Ignorance gets on my nerve. I cannot stand for people to make excuse after excuse after excuse without trying to access knowledge. Because one thing, knowledge is so accessible now that there is absolutely no excuse for ignorance. I can't stand people that make excuses all the time, always looking for a reason why they won't do something or why they can't do something. You know, any reason just to um, stay mediocre. So yeah, that bothers me and that gets on my nerve. Um, Now, I want to say this. Drug dealers don't get on my nerve, but the fact that they're ignorant when it comes to how to handle their financial resources, now, yeah, that bothers me. Because any one that I've ever seen, when, well, you know, the life on dealing is short-lived. You take a risk of going to the penitentiary or to the graveyard. So the fact that the financial resources are not managed for lifelong purposes, that bothers me. So any mismanagement of money, but especially from that population of people to where you're out making a quick dollar, and then when you're incarcerated or you die, the money is evaporated. You're flashy, living this image, this lifestyle, but I'm looking, where are the trust funds? Where are the IRAs? Where are the investments? Where's your kids' college fund? You know, those kind of things. So yeah, that kind of stuff bothers me. So I think that if you're going to accumulate funds in whatever mannerism that is, how you make your money is none of my business. But be smart about the money you make, because 9 times out of 10, more likely than not, you do have kids out here, you do have family that are dependent on you, and that is the reason why you choose to get out and make the money. And like I said, I don't have any problem with how you make your money, and this is to all people. You make your money how you make it, but when you don't think about the people that are dependent on you, that bothers me. So Education is another thing that bothers me. I think that we spent so much time educating about uh, history and uh, what's 2 plus 2 and all that, that we really miss, especially in this area, those real life, real world educational moments. So anytime you have schools in high poverty areas and you don't have an efficient financial literacy course, you don't have courses on business ownership, you're not offering trades that relate to our population, you don't have any classes that get our kids and their minds stimulated toward those high-tech jobs. Yeah, I got a problem with that, and that's a lot of why uh, I use my nonprofit for educational purposes, because it's time to recreate the culture. Also, I have a problem with education because there's no reason why we should have uh, kids that stay in your system from K all the way through 12, and they can't read and write. And even if they couldn't read because of a limitation or a disability, we should have enough trained professionals in the classroom to teach them ways that they can learn to their strength. So to have cycles and cycles of families that are illiterate and cannot read and write, that's a problem for me. So another thing that bothers me, it bothers me to see how the legalization of substances and the abuse of prescription drugs are affecting our families, and are the way that they are affecting our generations, because we are adults and it's legal for us to use. We take that for granted to the point to where now this stuff is easily accessible to our children. And not only that, our children are sharing it with your children. And it's beginning to be a cycle. And so then we have babies born addicted. We have babies that are born with deformities, and we are going blind to it. And I think a lot of it is because we're in such a poverty-stricken state. I do believe that has something to do with it, but I also believe it's from the lack of education that we're providing to our families. And the cycles, these young babies, my heart goes out to them. I see them, and they're all smiles with giving birth to their babies, and the babies seem to keep them going. And I can relate to that, because as a young mother, I can honestly say, looking back, I tell my babies all the time that they literally saved my life. Hello to you too, honey. They literally saved my life. And so I can relate. I can relate to being happy with those young babies. But I think that we also fail to teach that there are going to be some sacrifices and challenges that come along with that as our babies are getting older and they're growing and developing. And so it bothers me to think of the things that they're going to have to come up against. The stigmas and the cycles and the hardships that come along with being single parents. Because what's happening is that very few times are we seeing the fathers or the fathers and the mothers together. We're either seeing just the fathers or just the mothers, and then every now and then you'll see a couple. But then when you add some of the things that I've already spoken about on top of that, then that just creates a recipe for, I call it disaster, but it's a recipe for further crisis and a continuation of families being broken and dysfunction. And so things like that bothers me when I see our young babies, when their future is solely confined to um, having the babies and the relationship, and no goals or plans for the future. So that it really does. It sits heavy on my heart, and I feel kind of emotional now just thinking about it, because a lot of our babies are affected by it. They're affected by that because in reality, this is what we know. And this is our goal. And a lot of times our goals don't reach past graduating high school. So graduating high school, that's a milestone. But now what's next when we add a family on top of that? Then we have to worry about now how we're going to feed the baby. Or now how we're going to get the clothes. Or now what happens if they get sick. Or what happens if they're not born well. So things like that, I think about that, and my heart just goes out to our babies. And sometime or another, we're just gonna have to learn what we can do as a community to help break some of these cycles, so that when we do have these young mothers and young babies, fathers, because some of them, the fathers are with them, when we do have them in there, we have some kind of support network built up for them, so that we can begin to educate and help them past certain points in these challenges that are likely to come, especially in a time where we have the pandemic now. So we know that even for a lot of the working families, that it's caused a chaos in our families that have already established. But then when you have families that are losing jobs and now depending on outside assistance and things like that, these kind of things weigh real heavy. They weigh real heavy. And if you're already in a family that was already struggling, then where does that leave for that help? And I often speak about even the homeless population that we have here. It bothers me to think, how are they surviving through this hard time? Times are hard. I had my babies in the 90s, and it was hard then, and I raised them as a single parent. And I can sit and I can think about the hardships and the sacrifices. And even as I was making those sacrifices, trying to do right, there were still things that I had to struggle through as a young adult. My kids watching me grow up, going through a cycle of bad relationships, going through a cycle of depression and anxiety, just trying every day to get up to make it. And so when I look at these young ladies and they're posting and they're all smiles, and just a smile of that child just makes their day, I can definitely relate. But I also think about what happens when that's not enough. What happens when that's not enough, when you have to do things that you wouldn't normally do to make things happen? So then we get caught up in situations to where we're put in domestic situations, or hurt and abused, or working on a dead-end job just to get diapers and formula, or to keep the lights on. So yes, that kind of stuff bothers me. What else bothers me? People that abuse their authority and their influence to manipulate people. And I see it over and over and over again, and that bothers me. Because what I believe is, who you're meant to influence in life, who you're meant to reach, you're going to do that with the truth. You can leave manipulation and control and all that out of the equation. So when I see people playing on others people's emotions, and playing on their ignorance, and playing on their need for affirmation, and using those manipulation tactics, that bothers me. What else bothers me is to see a young lady put off her goals, her dreams, her aspirations for a man or for somebody else. I've seen so many young ladies graduate and have so much potential to do something great, but because the young man or the young woman or whoever goals are not set in the same direction, they give up on their goals and sacrifice. So what I found is that even in some of our marriages that where people have been married, you talk to them and they've been married for 30, 40 years and they've raised their families. A lot of the women, when you have conversations with them, you know, that's one of the biggest regrets that they have, is that they put off their goals and their dreams or their career for a husband or for a relationship. And now sometimes they wonder if it's too late. And so my advice to them is that if you still get up every morning, and it's still weighing on your mind, if it's still a goal or aspiration for you, I don't believe it's too late. But being the mindset that most of us are in, when we reach middle age, oftentimes it'd be something that's all it ever be. They'll die with whatever's in them still in them. So yeah, that bothers me. Let's see. Do you feel like there has been an agenda put in place to break up the family of the lower class? I think that there is a culture in place, and that culture has a mindset, and that mindset is called mediocre. And that is why we are in the class or labeled lower class. I don't look at it as lower class. I hate to use labels and things like that to box people in. Because one thing that I've learned through what I do through my platform is that any situation can change. But it will not change until the mindset change. Now, if I can get in and educate one, then I've reached a family. And when I've reached that family then reaches that organization. And then that organization then impacts the community, and then that community, the city, and then the city, the state. And it just goes on like that, guys. So that's what I'm saying. We have to do what we do. And I spoke last night, I think, about staying in our own lane. And that's why it's important to know your purpose and your lane and stay in it. We don't have to manipulate the situation. So, is there an agenda put in place? It is. And there's a cycle of mediocrity. And we're in the cycle of mediocrity because we don't read. We don't have another perception. We're not exposed to other than our immediate environment. How many people do you know in your area that travels abroad or travels at all or travels outside their state or is exposed to culture other than the one that they've known all their life? So they don't know that the mindset needs a shift because in their environment, it's normal. What they're doing, it's normal. The things that they do and the substance they take and the cycles that are in the family, it's all normal for them. So they're not recognizing that things need to change. And if our schools aren't teaching it, if our community organizations aren't teaching it, if they're never been exposed to it, then how are they going to know? Because I can tell you, just like I sit here on this platform and do what I do, I call this educating, empowering, and encouraging you. I hope that through my videos, this is what you found them to do for you some way or another. So when I offer a class in my community, it's not just a class. When people come to my business class or they come to my class to learn how to use technology, there's some psychology lessons going on in there. There's some lessons about themselves that are going on in there. I'm challenging their mindsets. I'm trying to give them a different perception, a different point of view. And I can't manipulate them and beat them over the head with it. I don't believe that that's necessary. I believe in giving people the truth, and by me providing the truth or sharing with you what's my truth, like I am here tonight, then you then can choose to be influenced by your own mind. You choose what's best for you. But it's up to me when I have an opportunity to plant the seeds that directly relate to real life situations that are attainable to those. Because I believe that if we can get up every day, and that's still an impression we have on our heart to own our own business, or we wanted to do something like be a educator or be a lawyer, or whatever it is, I think as long as you got breath in your body, and I don't care if you're 99 years old, if that's still your dream, I'm telling you to go for it. We don't have to keep putting our life on hold. We do that because that's what we've been taught. I can almost promise you, for a young lady to put her life on hold and to pursue a relationship that's going nowhere. Now listen to me, a relationship that's going nowhere. All you have to do, you don't have to look forward to see that is a cycle. I can guarantee that somebody in her environment has shown and gone down the same path. I can almost just bet you that. Now that's not to say that we that try to expose our kids to different or better, or they're going to do any better, because believe you me, when kids are grown and they're out on their own and making their own decisions, they're going to do some things that we didn't teach. They're going to do some things that we know they didn't see us do. But yet, I believe when the word said, train him up in the way that he should go. You know that saying? I believe that eventually when those they keep hearing mom and daddy's voice in the back of their head, and that conscience and that spirit guiding them, I believe that they'll go out there, but I don't believe that they'll stay. I believe that eventually they will find their way back home, no matter how long it takes. So I just believe that. What are some other things that are bothering me? It bothers me that sometimes our babies are leaving us too prematurely. Premature deaths. That bothers me. Because of maybe a lifestyle or the racial issues or some of the things we have going on in our world. You know, I just believe that some of us leave us too soon, and that bothers me. Because regardless, we have people, evil people. We have bullies. We have pedophiles. We have all these destructive people who get access to authority and power so that they can get closer to their prey. And if that looks like a police with a gun, if that looks like a granddaddy with his grandbaby, if that looks like an educator with his student, whatever it looks like, and that's what it is, and that bothers me. Because we will allow a predator to stay in the school system touching little girls for 30 and 40 years and just let them get by with it. We'll let them get by with it. We'll keep them there. But yet you'll have someone in the school system that has a heart for kids, has a heart for the community, and has the potential to impact change, and they don't get opportunity. You have people in powerful positions that can use cover-ups and that can use dictatorship in the bully system. And this is why we lose our babies as a result of it. I don't know of any baby that just wakes up one day and just decide that they don't want to live anymore for no reason. I don't know any baby that wakes up one day to take a walk down the street with the intention on not ever coming back home. I don't know any baby that has ever been violated that wants to hurt herself or wants to play victim. So there's a root cause to everything that goes on. And oftentimes we're just looking at the surface of things. And this just goes back to our mindset, how small sometimes our minds can be. We look at everything that's going on and we want to pose judgment on those things. But we don't want to find out what's the root cause is behind a lot of the things that these kids are going through. And I say kids, but that's a whole population, because some of us 40, 50, 60-year-old folks still living with that little girl and her hurt inside. Because no one ever cared enough or thought enough to ask the questions to get to the root of the problem, what the problem is. And so it just goes back to our babies, with the babies that are having babies or choosing not to have the babies, or whatever that situation is. I don't judge them, because I don't know what the situation was around that baby conceiving a child. We don't know if she was manipulated or raped, or dealing with unresolved issues back from when she was a little girl and all this. We don't know why she's giving up on her dreams. We don't know all that. We haven't asked the questions. But I know that any time that there is a problem, there's a root cause to that problem, and a lot of times we're just looking at the surface. We're just judging, because that's what we do. That's what the mindset does when you live with the poverty mindset or that of a mediocre mindset. And so those things bother me. So how do we change it? We change it with the truth, and we change it by reaching one person at a time. So when we finally get that in our head, that when we reach one, we don't know what that impact does. Because when we give it to somebody, and when we plant that seed, if it's sown on good ground, it's gonna take care of itself, guys. But a lot of times I find that we live in so much fear, we hold back because we got hidden agendas and undermined motive that we can't even stay focused long enough, or we want it to happen our way and in our time, instead of letting God have His perfect way. So no, I don't judge the little girls. I don't judge how people make their money and all that. The only problems I have is the flip side of that. We can't leave our families out. Family is important. And I do worry about the next generation. So I can't think of any other things that bother me right now. I do hope that I've shared with you what you were looking for. I appreciate these audience pick topics. I accepted the request to do it. And I thank you guys for tuning in with me. We'll be back tomorrow night for another audience pick topic. And that's what we'll be doing the rest of this week. Good night, y'all.